What does it? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching The Unholy. The Unholy is a story based upon a novel, I guess, about a discredited journalist who stumbles into a small town. This small town suddenly begins to experience a string of miracles, acts of God. Or maybe it's, acts of the other guy. This film was not on my radar 3 weeks ago. In fact, it wasn't on probably anyone's radar because that's when they dropped the first trailer. If there is one thing that I've learned over the past several years of reviewing films, that if a movie releases its first trailer just a few weeks before it's released, and especially if it's in the horror movie genre, don't get your hopes up, bud. Pair that with the fact that they almost certainly released it on Easter weekend intentionally to either A, stir up some gimmicky hype on it, or B, just bury the damn thing in the dirt. Either way, it's not gonna be good. And the trailer that they pooped on us 3 weeks ago looks like just that, a bad PG-13 horror movie. All signs were pointing to this movie sucking, so I went in with just the lowest expectations. I don't think I've ever walked into a movie so ready to hate it before even watching a single frame. And I gotta admit, I walked out of this film surprised. Surprised that, despite the fact that I set the bar so damn low that a baby could walk over it, it still could not touch it. I have absolutely no pros to note about this movie, which is a first. Trust me, I wanted to find something. I scraped the barrel. I even looked at all the performances from several actors and actresses in this movie that I generally like. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I love the guy. He is the man. He is the main reason why I gave this movie a shake to begin with. But it also had Katie Aselton from The League, William Sadler, and Carrie Elways is in this movie. And no, their performances weren't bad per se. I'm not gonna throw them in with the cons, but they weren't good enough or noteworthy enough to put them in the green zone. I have nothing good to say. Absolutely nothing. The power of Christ has compelled everything positive I could possibly muster about this movie. So naturally the cons, how long you got? Let's just try and make this as quick as possible so we can all move on with our day. Let's start with the dialogue. It was horrible, stupid, cheesy, cliche, on the nose, exposition, BS. The plot was idiotic, generic, predictable. The characters across the board, all unlikable. I found it impossible to like or care or get invested with any character in this movie, even Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, the protagonist of the film. Even he was difficult to root for at times. In fact, the only reason it works remotely is because JDM is such a charismatic actor to begin with. The pacing is horrible. I mean, damn, the movie is actually pretty freaking boring. Like, not a lot happens. It's mostly just a lot of people talking. They try and spice it up here and there with like a dream sequence or one of those BS scenes where an entity is doing entity things, but no one is there to see it, so why does it matter? If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? It's kind of one of those things. Like, what's the point? If you look at the totality of the film after you finish watching, really just nothing happens. I mean, the bloodshed is minimal. It's very unfulfilling. When they do try and spice things up with a scare, it's always a jump scare, and they're not even good ones. You can sniff them out from a mile away. I mean, it might make you jump, but the only reason you do is because they blast you with the loudest noise imaginable, and you have physically no other choice but to do so. Speaking of sound, the audio quality in several portions of the film were awful. Several pieces of dialogue sound like they have a covered microphone thing going on, or sometimes the audio levels might peak and they get that distortion as a result. The overarching sound design was not great. Sometimes it'd be a sound effect that's way too loud, or maybe they used the wrong sounding sound effect, or just overall the mixing, just everything felt uneven. There was one sequence in particular that involved the paparazzi, which was especially bad. I mean, it just did not sound right so often. The film just had absolutely nothing impressive to bring to the table audibly or visually. There were a few points in this film featuring special effects that I straight up just laughed out loud in my seat in the theater. It was awful. I do not know how certain parts of this film made the cut. I am genuinely flabbergasted that certain aspects of this film were considered passable for a national release. I am in awe. The film also had zero atmosphere to it, which is insane considering that's a staple of the horror film genre. Even some of the worst horror films I've ever seen, ever, have at least had some degree of atmosphere to it, but this one, absent. Here you get to hang out in an old tiny church house in broad daylight. At night, you get to go to a motel that has a blinking neon motel sign that they use way too often. I mean, seriously, this film takes you nowhere creative, stimulating, creepy, nothing. All in all, I am truly at a loss for words at how irredeemable this film was. It was just awful. Not even the type of bad that has some inherent unintentional entertainment value to be had. It was just bad. I really hate to say it, but under no circumstance whatsoever would I ever recommend you watch this movie. I am going to give The Unholy an F. There it is, folks. Been reviewing films since 2015 and never have I ever given an F. till today. I've given a couple D minuses, but I've never dropped an F-bomb. And I prided myself on always finding the good in a film, even if it's just not there. I would always find it. Am I saying this is the worst film that I've ever reviewed? I mean, it's possible, but it's not so cut and dry. I mean, some of the D minuses I've given could have easily been an F. But I just turned 30 years old this week, and I don't know, I guess I'm just embracing the grumpy old man in me. I knew deep down that eventually the day of reckoning would come. Eventually I would need to break that F seal. But I guess I just looked at this particular week, this particular birthday, this particular movie, and saw it as, I don't know, a golden stained opportunity to finally do it. It's the end of an era. Time to pour one out. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.